Black Cat Radio.
Dan, thank you very much for sitting down and talking to me.
That's all right. I'm thankful to be here.
That's no problem at all. So just so that we can sort of get some background towards you, how old are you? I know we're in this middle of this crisis, but imagine you're still at school.
Yeah.
And what are you studying, and what year group are you in at the moment?
Yeah, so I'm 17. I just finished my first year of sort of sixth form at Long Sands. Been studying sort of sport and all the things involved, like sponsorship, everything generally.
Okay,
in
and that's
sport, yeah.
and are you tied in with St Neots Football Club as well as part of
Yeah,
that?
it's sort of an enrichment option you can take, so you can do training during the day. So yeah, it's pretty much linked.
Okay, excellent. What we'll do is we'll go sort of get some background to why we're doing this piece at the moment and why we're talking about it. So I've known you for a good number of years and I've seen you grow up.
Yeah.
But let's go back to what probably was the beginning of a dream for you when you were spotted by Peterborough Football Club. So just go back and describe that for me.
Well, so I was playing down at Histon, and my little brother was sort of in the pre-academy at Posh. My dad got to know one of the other dads, and he turned out to be a scout. So dad just said, "Yeah, look, come down, see what you think, and yeah, we'll go from there." So came down on the Saturday, played a game, did quite well, and then it all got pushed through really.
Okay, how old were you at the time?
I was probably 12, 13 at the time.
12, 13.
Yeah.
So from that, what did you do? Did you sign some kind of terms? How did it work?
So you had to sort of clear it with like the academy manager down at Histon, which was all fine, obviously. And yeah, it was. They do it in two sections. So you do like a 6-week training period, and then if they like you, they do a 6-week playing period if you like. So that's when you sort of have to sign some temporary forms there.
Okay, so that was around 12, 13. So that was the start of your journey with Posh, and it was going quite well. So what was I know about the Junior Scholar Scheme, but that was the next big change for you. So again, just talk us through what the Junior Scholar Scheme is, and what it meant to you.
Well, yeah, obviously everyone wants to be playing football every day at a decent level. So when you get into year 9, you have the option to sort of change schools and go up to Neen Park in Peterborough, which is a link to obviously the club. And yeah, it's a big change. It's not for everyone, but if you're serious and you want to sort of be playing every day around the environment of a pro club, then it's unreal.
Okay, so clarify that Neen Park is a school up there. So part of your condition you didn't have to do it, but you were encouraged, part of the Junior Scholar Scheme is to actually change schools for what is your last 2 years of normal secondary education before sixth form?
Yeah, sort of it's separated, so you have a fence in between the school field and the academy field and the first team ground and everything. So yeah, it's a big change, but it's worth it if you're really interested in sort of that.
So how did that change your lifestyle for 2 years, basically?
It was long days, early mornings, so you get up at 6, sort of hop on the train. So as you get into Peterborough, you get picked up by the minibus, and the minibus driver take all the boys together over to school in the morning, and then sort of once you finish school, sort of train for maybe 2 hours, an hour and a half after school, and then just get on the train home. So I get home about 6 every day.
Okay, and that was basically set in stone for you. So for your last 2 years of secondary education, up to taking your GCSEs and finishing your GCSEs, you were set at Neen School. What was going to happen at the end of that, though? What was the process at the end of it?
Well, you have your meetings in sort of December time, whether you get a scholar or not. So if you don't get a scholar, like in my case, you can still do all the training and that. They're quite good like that, but yeah, you still have to stay there and sort of finish off your last few months at school. But obviously, if you do get one, then it's happy days. Really, you just carry on as normal.
Okay. Well, you've alluded to that. You didn't get your scholarship, which I know was hard on you. But how did you feel at the time you were told you weren't getting it?
It was obviously a massive shock because I was always one of the ones that was quite confident in myself that would sort of get one, but yeah, it's football really, isn't it?
It is, yeah, it's life, but again at such a young age. So you knew you weren't going to. You had to finish your GCSEs, but you knew before your GCSEs. And again, I know Peterborough looked after you reasonably well.
Yeah.
But what did the club do at that point? Once you didn't get it, what did they do to try and help you out at the next phase?
Obviously, you have sort of the scouting network, and they ask you to put your clips together, so your games get filmed, your training sessions sometimes. So they ask you to put all them together, and then they'll send it out to sort of some clubs and see what happens really.
So that was help from trying to get you another footballing position.
Yeah, to sort of stay in the loop really.
Was there any form of counselling offered to you though? Once you were told no, you're not getting the scholarship.
No, there was always that. If you ever need any help, we're always there. But it was never there was never any counselling provided.
Okay. Now we're going to jump forward. So you've already told us that you're studying at Long Sands Sport. So you're in the sixth form. So you had to then make the transition back to Long Sands. So you obviously had to apply for Long Sands. You started the term, so that would have been last year. That would have been 2019. Yeah, September 2019. So you started September 2019. Everything go okay when you went straight back to school?
Yeah, it was nice to see all my old mates and all the teachers again. So yeah, it wasn't a hard transition, to be fair.
Okay, and you were playing football for St Neots youth set up, the under-18 team, and also the reserve team at that time as well, yes?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then something changed. Can you maybe go back to the day it happened and describe to me what happened? I mean, how long afterwards? So we're talking about September, so you've been through all your summer, you've set your GCSEs, you're now set up at Long Sands, you're starting to play football in the September. When did this, and can you describe what the change was? When did it happen?
It was weird really, because I was a bit ill, I can't really remember. I was ill for a period of time.
Was that Christmas time, after Christmas?
Yeah, I think it was about Christmas time. And obviously by this point I was fully with St Neots now. So ill for a long time, and then this is the time I was sort of near getting around the first team a bit more when I was about 16. So yeah, it was a different sort of pressure. You've never really, in academy football it's all nice, and then you go into sort of men's and it's psychologically so much harder because you're sort of playing with fans and demands are there. So yeah, I was starting to just get a bit built up every time I sort of was going to training or around the environment, around the lads.
What was that? What was building up inside you? What was sort of coming out within you?
It was just a bit of anxiety and sort of the unknown, because you haven't really been there, done it before. So it was just that build up of constant pressure, keeping on top of you really.
Okay, and that was there. I mean, if we go back a little bit, and again, we've had other discussions about this. Was there something else kicking in? A realisation of what had happened a few months earlier?
Yeah, well, you see some of your mates getting sort of your pro deals and stuff like that, and then you're just sort of, you feel like left out almost. So you're there, you're just non-league sort of again. You have to build yourself up again. So that's that added pressure, isn't it? So yeah, it's always going to be playing on your mind that, oh yeah, I was there a few months ago and now I'm not, and it's just, you just got to try and get your head around it really. Okay,
so what happened to you? We'll talk about the mentally side or the mental side. Didn't put that particularly well. But what about physically? Because I know some physical changes came. I mean, what would happen when you were saying going to a game or going to training?
Yeah, well, obviously, because you've got that build up every time before you go to the game. So used to happen to me is I used to get a really tight throat, and it used to sort of make me feel like, it used to make me gag a little bit, maybe sick sometimes. So it was really, really tough sort of trying to sort of go into a game all focused like usually would be, and then you got that tightness in your throat, you're not feeling as good. So yeah, it was quite tough.
So you actually were physically sick on a couple of occasions, yeah?
Yeah.
Did you actually, we'll kick on, what was that having an effect school-wise? What's happening at school?
I've always been sort of, it kind of caught me off guard, to be fair, because I was always really confident in myself. But yeah, sort of going to school, it was really strange, because normally you've been going to school for years and it's just all the normal. But sort of I used to go in the mornings. Sometimes I wouldn't even make it out my door. I'd be sort of,
you just physically couldn't get out the door. And do you know why you couldn't physically? What was building up in your mind that just couldn't get you out that door?
I'm not sure. I think it's obviously going back to the football. You'd be being sick, and then that would be playing on your mind. So every time you do go out again, you feel like, oh, is this going to happen again?
So your anxiety was building up. You would repeat what you're doing, and it was creating a cycle that was stopping you doing that.
Yeah, it's sort of gets into a sort of a habit that every time you sort of go out or you're not in your little comfort zone, it's going to really, you think it's really going to hit you hard and stuff like that.
And what about them times where you weren't out and about and maybe at home on your own? Was that becoming even worse? Were you sitting there just going over it and over it again and sort of making the whole situation worse for yourself?
Yeah, I think at the very start, I think the first time that I remember it vividly happening was sort of I was doing the warm-up for the first team, sort of couldn't carry on, had to go home, and then as soon as I got home, I just remember sitting up in my bed and just I couldn't stop, like just feeling just a load of emotions. It was just overwhelming, and then that's when I just finally decided, yeah, I'll go down, speak to mum and dad and see what they can do.
So how long before you actually spoke to your mum and dad? How long had it been going on for?
Maybe 2 weeks, maybe.
So you'd been hiding it for 2 weeks, effectively. Yeah. That's not a dig at you, but you've been trying to manage it yourself.
Well, yeah, because I never really thought I'd have to deal with anything like this, because I was always confident, always had something going for me. So yeah, I was just thinking, yeah, can I do this on my own for a bit? And then ultimately got too much, and that's when you have to sort of see someone.
Okay, so what happened from there? So what did mum and dad do to help out?
They sort of looked at things on the internet, see what you could calm me down just straight away, just to get it over with. And then, yeah, when next day, Dad was on the phone to a life coach, and yeah, it went from there.
Okay, so how's your life coach helped? What's he sort of been? Is it he or she?
Yeah, Scott. His name's Scott.
Okay, so how's Scott been working with you? What's he been doing with you to try and make this easier?
Just a load of background, really. So going through sort of what triggers you could sort of have, and sort of just taking deep breaths, and yeah, just ultimately just trying to calm yourself down so you're stress free almost, and then that's when it's not as likely to come on.
No, okay. So there's been a lot there. I mean, again, we live a few doors down for each other, so we've been neighbours as well. I've got to ask this: is singing in the shower one of the coping mechanisms he's giving you?
Nah, that's just a hobby.
It's just a hobby, okay, because we can often hear you in the garden singing. We assumed it was part of the coping mechanism, which is why we haven't complained or moaned about it yet, mate. You know, it's driving us nuts. I'm not sure of some of your material, to be perfectly honest. Okay, so we've had this horrible lockdown situation.
Yeah.
How have you managed through that? Has that made it any better or any worse? Obviously, you've had no football, so you've not had to have that worry. So what are you doing through this to keep yourself going and keep yourself in control?
Do you know what? Even before lockdown, I was sort of in a really good place, sort of really kicking on with football, and it was just keeping my mind off sort of all the other distractions and stuff. So I haven't been too bad. Obviously, you get your sort of days when you're not really going out, and them sort of little thoughts start creeping in. But then you start thinking about sort of the life coaching that I've been having, and it's that, can you switch a negative thought into a positive one straight away, and it just makes it easy just to keep on top of things, really.
Okay, good. Well, that's good to hear. Right, well, we don't know what's going to quite happen with all this lockdown, so we've got to see what's going to go from there. I mean, you've probably not noticed, we've actually been talking for the last 13, 14 minutes, and you've just been doing it, and that's my dog barking in the background. Thanks, dog. Do you think that helps? Has talking helped?
Yeah, massively, because ultimately, if I haven't spoken to my dad or Scott or you or anyone like that, then I would have been in a world of trouble, really. So yeah, definitely, if you can speak to someone straight away, trust me, it takes a lot of weight off your shoulders. Okay, I mean, again, I've got to ask, and we'll come back slightly to the football. Do you think there's something missing? Do you think maybe if there was something else in place when you never got your scholarship? And I alluded to counselling earlier, and we don't like to use the word counselling because people think there is something drastically wrong with you. But if maybe you'd been offered counselling almost immediately, having gone through what you've gone, and having maybe, if it was similar to a Scott, a life coach, do you think that may have actually helped you at that time to, let's not say for this not to have happened, but maybe made it a little bit easier for you through that path for those 6 months or so? Yeah, I think definitely any help will just stand you in good stead for the future. But I think for me, in that point of time, obviously you have your sort of day, 2 days of just just despair, really.
Yeah, of course.
And then for me, I was always quite optimistic. Sort of, I got a good network around me, so I always knew I'd get another opportunity. But then, sort of, once you sort of almost forget about what happened, and then you sort of bring yourself back to it all of a sudden, that's when the sort of shock really sets in. I think.
Yeah, I can understand it. I mean, I'm sure for people that suffer grief from that, it's not the immediate it kicks in. It can be 6 months to a year later, you know, because you suddenly the realization kicks in later.
Yeah.
You know, it's one of those weird things. I mean, for anybody, certainly of your young age, you're only 17, you obviously started at 12, 13 on something that was going to be your dream. And I know that you didn't really have a plan B because you thought you were going to be a pro, didn't you?
Yeah.
So you've got to adjust to that, which again must be part of that realisation that maybe you might still play football, but you're not necessarily going to be the pro footballer you thought. So again, that's got to kick in. So, you know, what would you encourage others to do? What would you say to anybody else, to the person that's starting at 12, 13 with Posh again, to the 17-year-old that is now not going to be signed on for a scholarship? What would you say to them? What would your advice be? You're
always going to have that sort of dream, but I think sometimes you need to think of a bigger picture. And like my cousin who plays football, he's always said to me that school always comes first, you know, and obviously you, but but yeah, you always need to put things into perspective. Sometimes you need to be realistic. So yeah, school needs to come first, even though it might not seem like it when you're younger, because I know I was one of them.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely, you just need to take every day as it comes, really.
Okay, and if they did get to the point where they were struggling, what would you suggest is the first thing they do?
Just go and speak to someone.
Yep.
Yeah, that's plain and simple. That's all I can put it to, really.
Do it as early as possible. Yeah. And I guess you did it with your parents. Maybe it doesn't need to be your parents. Maybe it needs to be a school teacher, another friend. Just get it out in the open, because I guess what have you found by not talking and bottling it up made it worse?
Yeah, of course. But then sort of I spoke to quite a few people, really. So once I sort of spoke to my mum and dad, sort of spoke to Scott, and I just put it out there to some of my mates who are in football and that, and they said, yeah, of course, we've sort of gone through the same sorts of things, and they all said the same thing. Speaking to someone as early as you can really helps.
Okay, brilliant. Listen, I really appreciate your time and for doing that.
No worries.
That's been really, really interesting. So we'll see what happens in the future, but thank you very much, Dan.
No worries, John.